Save it. JPEG. Pictures.
Who is laughing?
We may need to have everyone put their phones on mute or their computers on mute, and someone's drilling, so I hope you're making something really nice.
Man, what's that back? Oh my God, that background does look nice. How did you do that?
We'll talk about it soon. We're gonna get started in just a second. All right, we got about 2 more minutes to go. If you need to use the latrine or bathroom and get some water, please feel free to do that. Hi, ma'am, we see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Can you hear and see me okay?
We see you great, ma'am, and we can hear you very well.
Excellent. I'm going to go back on mute until you tell me you're ready for me.
Awesome. Thank you. And I know Chief Nettles is out there. I already saw you earlier. All right, team, it is 1800 or 6 o'clock for any civilians joining us this evening. I am Colonel Clydea Pritchard Brown. First of all, I'm the commander of the 59th Ordnance Brigade, but I'm also the founder of the Female Mentoring and Morale Program here at CASCOM. I am so excited to have everyone joining us this evening. If you're the first time joiners, coming to us this evening, welcome. We're glad to have you here. If you've been here with us before, welcome back. We're so glad to always see your name in our box, in our inbox. And for that, welcome to the November session. On behalf of Major General Mark Simmerly, who could not be with us tonight because he is currently flying in the air going TDY, but he wanted me to extend his regret that he couldn't be here this evening with you, with all of us. He will be here for all the future sessions, but he is the commanding general for the CASCOM Female Mentoring and Morale Program, where we got started at Fort Lee, Virginia, but have definitely gone outside the bounds of Fort Lee. And so we're so excited to have everybody joining us this evening. On behalf of the executive board of the FMMP, which consists of Major Mari Lee, Captain Shalonda Estelle, Captain Mary Tang, wave Mary, there you go, I see Mary, Captain Sylvia Scott, who is across the waters right now, and Captain Sierra Cooper Thomas, who are our Fort Lee Executive Board, and also our Pentagon Executive Liaison Team that consists of Lieutenant Colonel Clydelia Pritchard Allen, who happens to look a little bit like me since she's my twin sister, and CW5 Yolandria Dixon Carter, who is the Senior Warrant Officer to the Chief of Staff of the Army, General McConville. So we are so honored to have all of them on our team making this possible, this program possible. Well, with that, before we get started, we always open up with a prayer to make sure we understand where our blessings come from. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Major Mari Lee. Mari?
Please pray to the God of your understanding. I'll pray to my Lord Jesus Christ. Dear God, thank you so much. We come to you, God, feeling blessed every day for every breath we take and every step we make. God, thank you for putting the right people in the right time in the Army to hear us, God. Thank you for setting trailblazers like we have to guide our path and guide our imagination to what can be possible when an organization take advantage of all its components, God. Thank you so much, and continue to guide us and continue to bless us. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Mari. And for that, thank you all for again joining us. We have a phenomenal evening tonight. As you've seen, the topic for tonight is going to be leading with passion. And I know we have a number of leaders on the line tonight. And I'm so excited to have you all on here to be able to hear a beautiful message from two phenomenal leaders. One of them goes without introduction. She is our TRADOC Deputy Commanding General, Lieutenant General Maria Gervais. And ma'am, we all had the opportunity while she was here last week to brief her on us preparing for holiday block leave, but it was just a great opportunity to just see awesome leadership at its best. She's coming out to check on making sure that the soldiers in the TRADOC community are nested within the TRADOC's mission of making sure we take care of people first. And so with that, we're so honored to have her here with us this evening to deliver a message on leading with passion. And just as equally honored, we are so happy to have CW4 Fatima Nettles. Chief Nettles is one of our trailblazers as well. Phenomenal speaker, phenomenal leader, and just an overall phenomenal person and wonderful person to get to know, a leader of many. And so she's out at the USAREC being able to bring in our warrant officers into the military and helping to guide them through their careers as well. So these two wonderful leaders are here this evening to give a message on leading with passion. And that means so many different things to so many different people, but just to have them tell us from their perspective what it actually means to them and how they can encourage us and help us learn, because they wouldn't have gotten to where they are right now if they didn't have the passion to continue to serve. As so many of us, we want to bring that next generation up, the younger generation of PFCs and lieutenants up into the military, and they have to understand what it means to lead with passion. And with that, being able to hear that, we're going to have a question and answer period after their message, after each one of them delivers a message. That will be the opportunity for you all to let us know what questions you have on your mind, what burning issues that you'd like to address. And if it's something that we can't address right now, please let us know. We will be able to research it and get back with you. For those of you that don't have our information, as you've seen on the flyer, you can reach out to myself or Captain Estelle or any of our board members, and we'll provide those answers. So without further ado, I'm going to open it up to our first wonderful, awesome guest, our TRADOC Deputy Commanding General, General Maria Gervais. Ma'am, we are here to hear your message on leading with passion.
Hey, thank you. So first of all, can you see and hear me okay?
Absolutely, ma'am. You look great.
All right, excellent. I appreciate that. And secondly, team, we're trying to figure out if there's a bandwidth issue that we're experiencing. I'm picking up like every third or fourth word. But if there's a problem, jump in and let me know that it's on my end, okay?
Well, we
right.
hear you great.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with this, and please let me know when my time is up, because this topic is great, and what we get to talk about, I could talk all night. So you just raise your hand or tell me my 20 minutes is up, and then I look forward to the questions. But team, look, first of all, I'm very, I appreciate the opportunity to speak today to this group, and also thank you so much for the invitation. You know, I sat in on one of these sessions, I want to say about 2 months ago, and I was very impressed and heartened by the discussion and by the leadership that was being shown in this forum. And so I can't thank you enough for allowing me to have this opportunity to speak to everybody. Before I begin, I just kind of wanted to share a couple things that you probably don't know about me. And first of all, I know you're all trying to figure out what is that behind my head. What is that right there? And that is actually a sculpture of one of our Dobermans who passed away. My daughter got that. It came in larger than she expected. So that's what that is. It was one of our pets who was like a family to us. So now that I got that out of the way, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So look, I'm a military brat through and through. I was the seventh of 9 kids. My dad was in the Air Force, and then he, on the day I was born, he got out of the Air Force and he went into the Army. And he was appointed as a warrant officer, and he retired as a CW4. So I think our next speaker, as you know, I have a great affinity for warrant officers since I grew up, and my father was one. But I will tell you that my father, he had 2 tours in Korea, and he had 3 in Vietnam. And he was very instrumental in not just my life, but all of us, our children, and our family. So, I had to decide what I was going to do. I joined the military in college after I was a college athlete, got hurt, and decided I needed to do something with my life. And I was very passionate about what the Army provided to our family in terms of 9 kids. And also my mother absolutely loved the Army. And so when I had to make that decision, to me, there was no better way to serve my country and also give back to what had given to our family so much. Now, I'm part of a dual military family. My husband and I were married the first year I was in the military. He served for 28 years. He was a signal officer, started out as a tanker. So 28 out of my 33 years, he has been part of the military also. And he continues to serve as he is a soldier for life. Now, we had 1 daughter. I had my daughter the very first year I was in the military. So I would ask you to ask me, how did that go over? Especially back when I showed up at my first unit of assignment and was immediately, I was pregnant and, still had to execute my job. Our daughter, she's currently an Army captain. She's a dentist. She serves in Fort Stewart. And she absolutely loves being part of the Army and serving our soldiers, our families, and being part of a family. My husband and I, we deployed 3 times together. And some of those deployments were year-long. Some of those deployments were shorter deployments, and they were into combat zones. And so you can ask me about that time and how we balanced that as we deployed together while our daughter was very young. Now, I'm a chemical officer by trade. And when you look at that, I've served in artillery units, I've served in aviation units, I've served in infantry units, I've served in logistics units. And in some of those units, I was the only, or I was one of very few females in those units as we were going through. And then as you look at it, I had the opportunity, and I'm going to use these words and I'm going to give you some thoughts on it. First, I was the first female commander of the HHC 101st Airborne Division Air Assault. I was the first female and non-combat arms to serve as the Deputy Commanding General for Combined Arms Center training. I was the only female, and I was also the only STEM kind of, in my background to serve as one of the cross-functional teams, which was leading to modernize our Army. And then, as you know, I'm the first female in non-combat arms to serve as a TRADOC Deputy Commanding General. Now, although I will tell you, I'm very humbled and honored to have been those first, and also I fully appreciate the opportunity and the importance of serving as a role model. But I will tell you that is really not what I want to be remembered for, and it really isn't what drives me. And I kind of want to share with you some things tonight in terms of what is important and what was considered important to me as I was going through my career. And I will submit, which led to where I am today. And so the things I want to talk about, and we'll get through as many as we can, and then you can ask me questions on the ones I don't. But one is leadership, and how, how do you get to people first, and also and caring about the soldiers that you lead. How did I approach every opportunity that I was giving? And then what was it that I focused on when I had those opportunities? The next piece is I want to talk about character and how we are stewards of our profession. And then I'd like to also talk about communication and what I've learned in 33 years in terms of communication. And then I want to talk a little bit about dual military and work-life balance, because that's always a question. It's always something very tough that we try to do. And so what I love about the job I'm in right now and being as part of TRADOC, I mean, we are focused on people each and every day. And if you think about what we get to do in the Army, I mean, we execute leadership, not just, I would say every second, every moment, every single day. And, what we do, in terms of leading our soldiers, and not just our soldiers, but our families and our civilians, our leadership matters. And it makes a difference in every unit you're in. It makes a difference in the soldiers you lead and how they perform. And it makes a difference in terms of retaining not just the soldier, but the family. Because, we recruit soldiers, we retain families. And it's important as we're going through leadership. And leadership makes a difference. And it has throughout my career. And it has, and I've seen it. And I'm going to give you some examples of where it didn't, and how leadership clearly made a difference. So I would submit to you that even on your worst day, on the worst day that you are having, it absolutely has to be the very best day for the soldiers that you lead. Your soldiers, they expect this, they need your leadership. And everybody knows that how you approach things and how you lead your soldiers and you interact with your soldiers, your unit and your soldiers, your subordinates will all start to mirror that behavior. And so you have to be very cognizant of that as you're going through. And I've seen this in action. I've seen it where units have become completely different, or they start to replicate the leader that they're being led by. And I will also submit to you that you should never underestimate the importance of your words, your actions, your demeanor, and how it can impact somebody. Something as small as an unkind word can make or break the difference, or take somebody from a low performer to a high performer. And I'm going to give you a real live example here. I showed up at basic combat training. I was a college athlete, and I will tell you, I was standing in that formation. Drill sergeant was barking all those commands, as they come, fast and furious, left, right, parade, rest, everything. And it was going so fast. I didn't think I was doing a good job. I was starting to doubt myself. I was questioning whether I could do this. And I remember Sergeant First Class Sanchez was kind of the evaluator for the platoon. And he came in and he was doing a counseling session, and he said, how do you think you're doing? I said, I'm not picking this up. It's coming too fast. I'm not sure I can do this. I remember him putting his pencil down and going, well, let me tell you what I see. I see somebody who is paying attention. I see somebody who is trying. I see somebody who's physically fit. I see somebody who's really leading others. See, that Sergeant First Class saw more in me, in my potential, than I ever saw in myself, and was committed to making sure I understood that, and then was committed to helping me get there. And I got to tell you, that session right there came back and reinstilled my confidence and just set the path for me to continue in basic combat training. So think about that as you go through it. I will also tell you the leadership, and I'm going to use another real world example. I came out of Brigade Command. And when I was in Brigade Command, look, I just successfully finished Brigade Command and had done it well. And I was going into Iraq. I was going to be a chief of staff of a certain organization. And I got there, and first of all, we know how it's like. You're away from home. You get there. I'm living in a little containerized housing unit called a CHU. And, I will tell you, I got there and there wasn't a good leader. There was a small team there, that was trying very hard. The leader had been there for quite some time. The leader was always demanding, belittling, putting people down, was expecting a lot more out of that team without helping them get there. And I got to say, it was the first time in my Army career I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be fired because I couldn't do anything right. Everything was coming so fast. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I'm going to be fired. And then every morning, I got to tell you something. I didn't want to get out of that bed. I did not want to get out of that bed. But what got me out of that bed was two things. Number one was the, first of all, I told myself, hey, every day you get out and you walk through that door is one day closer to your being home. That was number one. Number two, I told myself that that team that had been there before me had endured so much more than I have. And my job was to try and create that environment to protect them and allow them to thrive and to help me bridge the gap between this leader and this team. Now, the other piece of that I will tell you was the other piece that was important was the leader was getting ready to leave. So I could stand on my head for a month as this leader was getting ready to leave. So I came into a team which felt like they could never do anything right, was not happy. The morale was very low. Cohesion wasn't good, but it was getting better. And we got a new leader in. And nothing changed except that leader. That leader came in and believed in us. He talked to us. He helped guide and mentor us. And you know what? We went from like being and no people changed, no experience changed, but we went from the bottom to being the number one performer in the overall organization. And people became better. They became they took ownership, and it was just an amazing experience. So I've seen both how bad leadership impacts and how good leadership can help as you go through it. So leadership is one of the things that I'm probably one of the most passionate about as we take a look at it. Now, one of the things I will just share with you, and you probably ask, because I have a lot of different experiences throughout my career. If you've seen my bio, I don't have the same, this cut path that we went through. And one of the things, how did I approach every opportunity and what did I focus on throughout my career? So first of all, I will tell you, I focused on becoming a value team member, no matter what team I was on. What was it I could contribute and how did I become a member of that team? I will tell you, it was all about attitude and how I approached whatever task I was given. So whatever task, because look, my MOS is chemical. So I went into all kind of units and I looked at it and said, whatever they gave me to do and asked me to do, I made it the most important thing I had to do. Okay, so I said I'm chemical. So you know what? I got USR. USR was given to every chemical officer. But you know what? I approached that as the most important way we communicated with the Department of the Army. I made sure that I understood everything about the unit. I understood that it represented what the commander wanted, and I did the very best job. But I found the significance and importance in that job, and really didn't look at it as just a task. I looked at it as the most important thing I had to do for that unit. Same thing when I was on the Joint Staff. Same thing in the 101st. I was given a special projects. It was called Week of the Eagles, where they celebrate the entire history of the 101st. Now, so a lot of people are like, I'll be honest with you, what they said to me was, boy, that sucks to be you. And I'm like, really? I said, my gosh, this week we connect to our veterans. It's the way we show our pride, our pride, our history, and what we were able to do. And we were celebrating the 101st history in the Vietnam War. And the museum had the original signs. If you want it done, ask the 101. We recreated that entire environment. And when you had somebody that served in the 101st and was on that ground in Vietnam and came back and stood under that sign and cried because of what they went through, if I approached it just as a task, as a special project, I probably would have never found the significance in that job. I would also say, I focused on the job and the opportunity I was in. not the one I didn't get or the one I wished I had. Because a lot of times you kind of will focus on that versus the job that you're in. And I always approach that job not asking myself, what is it that that job can do for my career? But what is it that this assignment needs from me at that point in time? And, that's kind of important because it really focuses you on how do you develop and how do you approach what you're doing. I will also say that the advice I will give, focus on your skill sets, focus on your strengths and your weaknesses. Everybody has them. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and everybody has something that they bring to the table that is going to contribute to that organization. And it's important that you not focus on what you don't have. Now, you recall I said I was the first non-combat arms to officer to serve as the deputy general for CACT training, oversees all our training for the United States Army. Here's the thing. I sat in forums where I was the only non-combat arms, only female. Now look, I don't know what it is to grow up in a tank. I've never had that experience. I don't know never had the opportunity to understand what it means to be part of a close combat force and close and destroy with the enemy, right? So you know what happened? And look, I'm a 1-star at this point. I started doubting all the things I didn't have. When I went into that job, I started focusing on all of those things. And I would say it led me to a very dark place, right? Because I was trying to be something or understand something that I just never had the experience to do. And I went into a dark place because I was studying all the time. I was questioning myself all the time. I didn't think I was getting it right. And, and quite frankly, my work-life balance was completely out of balance, to the point where one day I've taken my dogs, to include the one that was right there, and I'm like, get outside, go to the bathroom, hurry up. I got to get back to what I'm doing, right? And I remember I'm in the yard and I look at my dogs and my dogs look stressed, right? And I know you're like, what do you mean they look stressed? No, they look stressed because I was stressed, the dogs were stressed. And I remember thinking to myself, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you trying to do? You're forgetting what brought you to this table. You're forgetting to focus on the things that are going to make this team great. And you're not focusing on the right things. So I started focusing on those unique things in my background to help achieve the mission that we needed to do. And I got to tell you, when I did that, all of a sudden, where people were like, hey, she's not combat arms, but how does she do that? Because I focused on how I could do it, not what I couldn't do. And I'm sharing that with you because we all question ourselves at every level. We all go into organizations, but focus on what you do know and focus on what you're going to bring to that table and focus on how you're going to help that organization become better, not what you don't know, not what others have experienced, not what you didn't have that same job. So I would offer that. I'm not sure how much more time I have. You can tell me when to just be quiet.
You're doing great, ma'am, honestly.
All right.
Keep going.
Okay, I'll get there. And then I would tell you the last thing I would offer before we move on to the next topic is I would tell you, focus on those things that you can change. And what do I mean by that? You will focus on other things in terms of somebody's doing this job, somebody's getting this this opportunity that maybe I'm not. If I focus on that, and I call that negative energy, if you focus on that negative energy, it's going to take away from your positive energy. And the thing you can control and the thing you can influence is how you perform, improving your competency, improving your physical fitness, and doing the job that you're asked to do. That's what you can do. And really what I found is that it was the actions that really led to the results or the opportunities in the future, and not the words. It was the actions. And so, sometimes we get caught up in just, why didn't I get this? what's the difference? I could have done this. And look, I'm going to tell you, I was there all the time. But the fact is, focus on the job you're in and the opportunities, I will submit to you will come as we're going through. So I want to talk about character, and then we'll wrap this up, because I know we got a great speaker, even better than me. I will submit to you, which I'm really interested in, and the questions. But I will tell you, character is probably the thing we have got to really understand. We're all born, we're raised, we go through different experiences, and then we join the army. A lot of your character is already kind of set to a degree, and you have to work on your character each and every day. And I will tell you, my belief is that society and competition and everything that you're trying to do in a culture could lead you to become somebody you don't want to become. And it's too easy to do that. So understanding who you are, what you stand for, is so important, because you're going to be challenged each and every day with that as you go through. And, competition, rivalry, just the pace of how things occur. And so I think, quite frankly, society and culture drive potentially to character, or people becoming somebody they're not, or not working on their character. If you haven't read the book, or you can even listen to it, it's called Road to Character. And I absolutely love the book, and this is why. And look, it's kind of thick, I'm going to warn you now, but I will tell you, it takes you through history, through all kind of leaders in history. And it talks to you about, how they had to be humbled before they became great. It told you how they had to overcome adversity, how they handled situations. And the reason I made that comment about the job, it's not what the job can do for my career or what I want this job to do. It's what the job needs for me, is because it tells this story about this world-renowned psychiatrist who, during the World War, he was Jewish. He was captured by the Nazis. He was put in a concentration camp. And never in his imagination did he think what his ambitions would be changed by that event, and would lead to what he ended up doing for his life. So he had a lot of people who were giving up. There was a lot of people that had to overcome adversity. And, some of his comrades said, "Hey, why are you helping the Germans?" He goes, "Because it's my job to stay alive. It's my job to be talking to you." And you know what he found out in that most adverse of horrible condition right there? He found out that he had the ability to give people hope. He had the ability to study people and understand what concerned people. And he actually had the ability to help people in times when they had lost hope. And that led to him becoming the psychiatrist. And he will tell you, I never thought in my life that's what I would be doing. But it gives you a lot of different things to talk about. And one of the things I took from this book, and I do it every single night, I go home at night and I ask myself, what did I do today? What did I do today that I'm not particularly proud of, that I wished I had done different? Because see, the op tempo is so fast, and people will say, "Hey, you're so busy." But if I'm too busy to talk to people, if I'm too busy to spend time and really listen to people, then I've lost all perspective on everything. And so when I go home at night, I ask myself, did somebody ask me a question, but I was in a hurry to that meeting that I didn't pay attention, that I didn't give them the time that they deserve? Were my feet going down the hallway? Because that's really where my mind was when I was talking to them. Did I use a sharp word? Did I not give due consideration? And did I have an impact on somebody that I didn't? So every single night I go home and I ask myself, what did I do? And how am I going to improve it? And then I work the next day. And we have to do that every single day. And I would submit to you that that's something that I think all of us need to work on, and we have to get better. So, look, I'm gonna stop there. I got a lot more. But I'm already probably well over my time. And we'll
Ma'am,
just open questions.
I'll tell you, and it, what you've stated already has already fed a number of our souls just based on the information. As you know, we sit in TRADOC and we have young privates coming in. And so the last comment that you made about taking that time and actually checking to see if you answered questions, it resonates with, we've got a few drill sergeants and we've got our cadre members and command teams on the line. And so that's what we grapple with every day to, to make sure we're answering those questions of those young minds that want to know everything that they can about the military, but we're so busy, how do we answer all of those questions? So I truly appreciate that. And I think everyone on here needed to hear that so that we can all go home and think, who did I not help today? Or what question did I not answer? So we can try to follow up the next day and say, you know what, let me take that time and give it to you because you probably needed me to say something to you that day. And so I appreciate you bringing that up. And ma'am, believe me, we'll have enough people to pick your brains tonight. And we're so glad that you're willing and open to answering all the questions. So thank you so much. And so now you've already introduced her somewhat, but I want to take a moment to introduce the Chief Fatima Nettles, wonderful person, friend, mentor of mine. I get to talk to her and ask, things that I don't even know. And I'm a colonel, and people are like, you're a colonel. Why are you asking the CWW4? I said, it doesn't matter what my rank is. She has great knowledge and information, just if nothing else, to uplift my spirits and make sure I'm doing the right thing for her and other soldiers. So with that, please jump on in there, Chief Fatima Nettles. We are here to hear the thoughts that you have on leading with passion.
Thank you, Colonel Pritchard Brown, Lieutenant General Gervais, Chief Dixon Carter, senior leaders, and other attendees. I'm Chief Warrant Officer Fatima Nettles. I've been in the Army 23 years, and 13 of those years I've served as an electronic missile systems maintenance warrant officer. I've been privileged to attend the Command and Center General Staff College. I earned my second master's degree in military science, and I've completed airborne training, earned the instructor badge, and other numerous civilian credentials and certifications. I've also served in a lot of unique and challenging positions, including the 1st Theater Sustainment Command Warrant Officer Aide to the Commanding General. And one of my most rewarding assignments was an instructor for MOS 948 Delta Warrant Officer Basic Course. I'm currently a Warrant Officer recruiter in the National Capital Region. But mentorship is not about my accomplishments. It's more about my challenges, my struggles, my failures, to ensure that we don't make the same mistakes. So a lot of you know me and know that I'm an extremely passionate person. What you don't know is that my passion started when I was 17 years old and I had a daughter in high school. I was determined and passionate about being a mother and providing for her despite all the challenges and biases that go towards being a single mom, and I did so. And what I did is I chose to join the military. And when I joined the military, I knew how important the military would be for the survivability of me and my daughter. And that passion just basically drove me throughout this career. And then there's some good and there's some bad. All right. So what I want to talk to you is about how I had to learn how to lead with passion, how I wanted to transfer my passion into my subordinates and the challenges that I endured doing so. So I'll start with a story. When I was a CW2 in Korea, I was going through the Army Award for Maintenance Excellence. I had my own motor pool, and we were a small motor pool, but we had to go through the different phases of this competition. So I came in there running. We competed for the first phase and we won, taking us to the second phase, and we won the second phase. And then we got to the third phase. And as I started walking into the motor pool, I saw less and less of my soldiers there. And I was wondering, what's going on, what's happening. And I realized that as we were winning, I was losing them, right? So my passion for winning, I didn't transfer that same passion to them. And although I was happy, I wasn't allowing them to be happy because I didn't provide them that purpose, that attention, that strength, that security, that integrity, that vision or optics, or I didn't also always have the nobility or the character that I should have had to carry us through the competition. So I went to my boss and I said, sir, I know I have some complaints. I know I have some soldiers going to sick call. I know I just losing my soldiers. What do I do? We're winning. Why aren't they as passionate as me? And he told me something that resonated. He said, Fatima, don't expect you in people. All right. And it did resonate with me. And I left there and I said, you know, the only way we're going to win the next 2 levels is if I have them. So I needed to figure out, how do I transfer my passion and my drive to them in a way that they would help me, help us, help the unit achieve that goal. So I read many books. I listened to many TED Talks. So the most influential books was John Murphy's Leading with Passion, Angela Duckworth's Grit, and Jeff Goins' The Art of Work. I read these books and I took a little bit from all of them based on the situation that I was in. And I came up with an acronym for passion, which I said a little bit of it, but I broke it down as passion being purpose, strength, security, integrity, optics, and nobility. So let me explain how I use that. So I related it to my situation where I needed to take care of my daughter. My daughter was my passion. So she was my purpose. My purpose was my drive. It shaped how I was gonna, perform, how much the military was important to me. So how can I provide my subordinates purpose? So what I did is I told them, brought them all together and I said, hey, this competition will allow us to catapult to different levels. I'm gonna make sure we all get awards for your achievements and what you've done. We're gonna get money so we can improve on the motor pool. And I just kind of allowed them to see how their work was impacting the bigger picture. I was giving them purpose. All right. In addition to the purpose, I gave them attention. I didn't just say, hey, we need to execute this and walk into my office. I started to work beside them and with them because this was a goal that we wanted to achieve together. So my presence was extremely important. And I wanted to let them know that I'm not just going to bark orders. I'm going to be with you and we're going to get through this together. And that made so much of a difference. And I saw, once I started with the purpose and being present, more soldiers were showing up to the motor pool every morning. And I saw how it was making a difference. So I didn't stop there. Then I wanted them to see how competent I was and how I was pouring into them to make them more competent. We always want to let our soldiers know we want them to be better than us. We always want to build them up. We always want to pour into them because they are our replacements. I allowed them to see and I taught them so many things and I explained why we did things and how to do it. So I didn't need to be over them. I built the trust with them both ways. They trusted me that I was going to pour into them and that I was going to make them better. And I trusted them to go out there and accomplish missions without my supervision. Then I gave them security and confidence. I wanted them to know that I had their backs. I know we were working long hours, but I was compensating them with time to let them know that they are covered. I was going to make sure that all the work that they were doing, the extra hours, were being compensated with personal time. I wanted to make sure that any appointments, any family issues, they were still first while accomplishing the mission. I made them understand that they were protected and they were safe in this environment and that I was keeping them safe, which built our relationships as we went on. Then integrity. I never promised them anything that I couldn't follow through with. I was very honest. I made sure that they knew that everything that they did was based on trust and they could trust me with any issues. And therefore I built trust within them. We became a team of teams. And I'm telling you, as we went through this process, they were becoming more motivated. They were accomplishing all these things and it was just building us up to a family. And in Korea, that matters because they can't go home to their families. We are a family. And when I saw that my family was falling apart, I had to do something because we can't do anything by ourselves, especially in that type of environment. Additionally, with the trust, I let them know my vision. And then I asked them, what's their vision? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 1 year? And then I applied what we were doing throughout the competition to their goals to let them know I hear you, I care about you. And if you want to be a motor sergeant, then we're going to make sure that whatever your tasks are as we prepare for this competition are nested in making you a motor sergeant. If you want to change, if you want to make sure you understand supply better in this competition with maintenance, I want to make sure I get you in there with the clerks so you can understand those processes. I let them know that I was as invested into their future as they are with mine, and how we all can capitalize on completing the competition and winning. And the last thing I did is I was of good character. I made sure that I exemplified a noble leader, one that knew the standard, owned the mission, and was with them throughout this whole process, and let them know that we are a team, regardless of rank. We respect each other, respect each other's personal and professional goals. And then we would definitely win that competition, and we did. So after 6 months of, complaints, of sick call, of quarters, me just losing the soldiers, I gained them back, and we made DA finalists. In addition to that, when we made DA finalists, I had the general come to our motor pool and give each of those soldiers an award and explain the impact of their efforts so they will understand their purpose. And also bring that general to the motor pool to be present. Also to tell them that they were confident, they were competent, they were trustworthy, and they were all of good character. And that made all of the difference. And I appreciated my boss telling me to look at it from a different vantage point. You can't sell anybody your dream. You have to find out what's important to them. And then you have to, that's how you have to share your passion with them. You can't always think that everyone is like you. You have to find out what drives them. And as leaders, it is extremely important if you want to build a team of teams. So I leave you with this. Never expect UN people, but treat people the way you want to be treated. Don't give blind guidance without purpose. Be confident and own the mission as your own without shifting responsibilities to higher leadership. Be present as your level of responsibility dictates. Be an honest person of the highest character. These attributes will cultivate a team led by personal power, not positional power, and allow you to successfully lead with passion. And I will tell you, I have definitely shared this with my daughter. And having her at 17 years old and putting everything that I have into her and into the military has made me a successful mother and a successful warrant officer. My daughter is a college graduate, and she is also in her master's degree. So passion is your drive. Just make sure you don't allow your passion to tear down the people around you. Thank you for listening, and I'm open to your questions.
Wow. So if anyone else felt the same way I just felt, I felt like a proud mom, sister, daughter, everything that, hearing your story from where you came from. And I know you didn't envision where you are now, back when you were the 17-year-old Fatima. There's no way you could have, but just based off of what you and General Gervais spoke of, we have to identify who we are from the character, from the building blocks that were set before coming into the military. And then we have to decide who we're going to be after we come in the military. What do we want our lives to be known for? And so I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Chief. Thank you so much, ma'am. And this is the fun time where we actually get to open up the conversation and discuss and open up the channel. So we've got Captain Shalonda Estelle, who's going to facilitate, pulling in the questions of who's got a question to ask. Feel free to put them in the chat room, or feel free to raise your hand. If you have you have the feature on there, you'll be able to raise your hand and ask a question, and she will call on you. And I believe I see the first one. So Shalonda, I'll let you go on and take it over. I think I see a hand raised already.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. And thank you again for Lieutenant Colonel Gervais and Chief Nettles. Wow, I still have like chills right now. Am I on mute? No,
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Just
So
correct me.
first question, Captain Mary Tang, I saw your hand a while ago. So Mary, you're up.
Captain Tang.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Captain Tang. One of the questions that I would like to ask is when we see leaders do not exhibit the character or passion you all have described earlier, how do we let them know or someone know if that leader is causing the morale to go down?
That's a great question. And what I will do is, Ma'am General Gervais, if you don't mind, I'll open it up to you first, and then we'll let Chief Nettles answer that second. Can you repeat the question, Captain Tang?
Yes, ma'am. The question that I had is that when we see leaders who do not exhibit the character or passion that everyone has described, how do we let them know or let someone know that the leader is causing the morale to go down?
Thank you. Ma'am, would you like to answer that question first, please? Were you able to hear it?
I did, and it's a absolutely great question, especially as you take a look at different positions that you're in and who that leader is and how do you handle those kind of situations? Because when it's one of your peers, it's much easier, right? Because a peer-to-peer conversation, to me, is one of those things that, as an Army profession, and we're in a profession and we are stewards of our profession, right? So when you see somebody that doesn't have that character, or they are not exhibiting the passion that's necessary, first of all, I will tell you, from a peer perspective, we all have an obligation to address it with our peers. I will tell you, when I was kind of referring to a couple things that I'm very passionate about. I mean, our Army, we do a lot of great things. We do great things every single day. And I got to tell you right now, after listening to Chief Nettles, oh my gosh, I mean, what a phenomenal story, passion. And then when you listen to that, that's what makes our Army great. It is what gives so much confidence, me as a senior leader, that the future of our Army is in great hands. And when you look at our young soldiers coming in that want to serve and, subscribe themselves to something bigger than themselves, the defense of our nation and our civil liberties, I mean, my gosh, that is just absolutely amazing, right? Okay, but the thing that bothers me the most, and I'll just get this off my chest right now, you guys are just going to have to listen. I will tell you, why is 1 or 2% of our Army defining our Army right now? Why is that? Right? Okay, we all know that we're a fabric, we are kind of the fabric of our society. We recruit from our entire society. We know that when you come in, you subscribe to the Army values. When you come into basic combat training and you go into AIT, that's where you start to understand Army values, what we stand for, what right looks like. The thing that bothers me is when things happen, it's kind of like the question, somebody doesn't have that character, they're not living by those Army values. Somebody knows, right? Somebody knows. But we continue to let it happen. We don't address it. The thing that's most powerful is when it's peer-to-peer, it's immediately addressed by a peer. That's not right. That's not what we stand for. When it's a subordinate, we all know how to do that, right? You come in, you counsel the subordinate, you kind of tell them what right looks like. But the thing is, counseling, you got to get them to understand this is why it was wrong. This is how to do it right. And then we coach and mentor to help get there, to give the right skill sets, right? Because a couple things I found, and going back to experience in Iraq, first of all, we were so busy, we were working 18, 24, 20 hours a day, just the pace of it. And sometimes even the simplest task, what I considered simple, what happened was I would get frustrated if it wasn't done right. And I would feel myself getting stressed, and maybe I wasn't being the leader that I wanted to be. But here's what I had to understand. That those soldiers or the civilians that were there, they had not been in the same experiences that I had. They were not shown what right looks like or had the opportunity to actually do it. And when I realized that they didn't have the same experience or understanding with that, it made me understand not to treat everybody just like I think they should be treated, and they had the same experience set up, right? So subordinate is important because counseling, coaching, teaching, given the right skill sets, showing them what right looks like, peers. But what happens when you have a leader? What happens if you have a leader that is not doing the right thing? Well, first of all, we understand processes and regulations that give you the opportunity to express the concerns that you have, right? You also have the ability, what I have found in dealing with this situation, because I've had leaders. How do you go get a mentor or somebody that can help guide you through that, and somebody that can help figure out how to address that situation? Because you know, if it becomes confrontational, you know, if you go in and you're a subordinate and you go in and you tell your boss, you're all jacked up, right? We all know that's not going to go as well, not going to be received. However, through processes and regulations and through a mentor who can also get a peer to help guide you and change that, it can be addressed. And then I will tell you one of the things I always kept in mind, and you're probably going to ask yourself, why do I say this? I had an S3 that I worked for when I was in the aviation unit. Absolutely phenomenal in terms of person. Competency was a little bit lacking. Understanding of how to execute. And we had some issues when we were out at the box in NTC. And I remember a couple of the subordinates at that point in time, and some of my peers were like, oh, he just gave this order to go do this, and we're just going to go do it, and it's going to make him look put him in a bad position. Number two, it was going to make the organization look bad in front of the corps commander and the division commander. And what we had to do, I had to stop him, right? I had to say, hang on. We don't want to embarrass this leader. We don't want to embarrass our organization. Our job is to make this organization the best it can. And I said, at that point, I just walked up to him and said, sir, you're asking us to do this. This is what it means. I recommend we not do it. And then we had to come back and, I will tell you, others saw it and that issue got addressed later on down the road. But I want you to think about that, because it's too easy sometimes just to say, it's not, it's our job is to make sure that we're doing everything we can to put our organization in the best position as we can. So that was a long answer. So I'm going to be quiet because I know there's lots of other questions.
Well, ma'am, that was a great answer, though. I mean, it's a great point. As a matter of fact, one of the main things about the Female Mentor Morale Program and just mentoring alone, having that mentor with the rank to possibly go across the lines and talk to that person. I know I've had people come to me with some challenges and some issues at different locations, and it just took me picking up the phone and calling over to a fellow brigade commander to say, hey, Battle, don't know if you know this is going on in your footprint, or this is something you may need to take a look at. And then it got addressed. But it starts with telling us, or letting someone know so they can address it, because it doesn't get better if it doesn't get addressed. So completely understand and appreciate your response. Thank you for that, ma'am. Chief Nettles, would you like to provide some of your thoughts as well?
Yes, I agree with both you, Lieutenant General Gervais, and Colonel Pritchard Brown. It is our responsibility to allow that person an opportunity to change. And they only can change if we make them aware of what they're doing wrong. In addition to that, the Army has some systems in place like climate surveys, command surveys. And then like Colonel Pritchard Brown says, we use our trusted agents. You have someone that is in lateral rank with them. You say, hey, this is how I feel. Validate that your complaint is a necessary complaint, and then ask if they can be your trusted agent to approach that person. So you don't put yourself in a peculiar spot. In addition to that, when I went to senior staff course for the warrant officers, they introduced the Bathsheba concept. And I don't know if y'all know, but when King David did something wrong, and he had a prophet come to him and kind of hypothetically explain the situation to him. And King David was like, I can't believe this person is doing that. Who is this? And when that prophet told King David, it's you, it really made him think. He didn't realize what he was doing. So that's why it's so important to allow that person an opportunity to fix it first. We have to do that through whatever avenue we can, because if we want the problem solved, we want to solve it at the lowest level. Beyond that, the Army, I think, does a great job with creating programs and processes for us to address it otherwise.
And I appreciate you saying that. It's so funny when you brought that back up, because we've used that in the past for some different examples. So to bring home that there's two categories of people that we're talking about: those that don't know what they're doing, and then those that do know. And I submit to you that there's two different avenues you have to, and approaches you have to take for that. So I appreciate both of your responses. Let me see, is there anyone else? I know we've got quite a few VIPs on the line. I always get excited when I see General Gainey, ma'am. So I always put you on the spot. Just know that. Lieutenant General retired Kathleen Gainey, ma'am, you know I'm always put you on the spot. But I know because you're one of my main mentors that has raised me in the military, I would love to hear your thoughts if you'd like to add some.
I think we had two great examples. It takes a lot of courage to come forward. Some bosses are more approachable than others. So you have to look at that boss, if it's a boss situation, and say, okay, can I come to them and say, I think there might be a better way to do this, or I think the way we're approaching this is causing some division in the organization, and we need to address that. And I think if we do these things, we could turn that around. I've had other bosses where it's clear they don't even value me so much. They're not going to take what I have to say. So the suggestion of going on the lateral side to that mentor that you have, to have somebody else try and get that word to them by somebody that they may value, where, you know, they can do the, you know, whack them up the head, because your whack them up the head isn't going to work. It's difficult to assess that. And sometimes you can also go to your senior NCO in an organization. I have used that very successfully with bosses that I did not think were going to be receptive to me, but I had a strong relationship with the senior non-com. I could approach them with the situation, and they could often help head off problems or change things or get to the senior leader in a manner that I could never as a subordinate. I hope that helps.
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. All right, we're going to move to the next questions. Captain Estelle, who's our next person on the line?
Ma'am, we have Drill Sergeant Handy.
All right, Drill Sergeant Handy. Ask your question, please.
Good evening, Lieutenant General Gervais, Chief Nettles, Colonel Pritchard Brown, and fellow team members. My name is Drill Sergeant Handy with Charlie Company's 16th Ordnance Battalion, charging forward, always forward. I have 4 soldiers here with me. I have Private Barclay, Private Ahmed, Private Ellicott, and Private Mata. The first question up is from Private Barclay.
Yes, my question involves leadership and passionate leadership, specifically the differences between the both of them. And I understand that passionate leadership incorporates some dedication or commitment, but really, what's the difference between passionate leadership and just plain leadership? And is passionate leadership always the best route to go?
Well, that's a great question. I will turn that over to, we'll start out with Chief Nettles. Chief?
Well, that was a great question, and thank you for coming online and asking that question. So, wow. Is passionate leadership always good? I'm gonna start with that. And if you heard my story, that passionate leadership has to be shaped, all right? So my passion and how I exert my passion may not be receptive to those on the other end of my leadership. So is it always good? Not all the time. It has to be shaped to that audience and to those subordinates. Like I said, you have to take in consideration where their passions are. You have to treat them with respect by giving them purpose, you know, being present, you know, making sure that they know you're competent and you're building their competence. making sure they're secure and safe with you, being honest with them. So you have to make sure that with how you're executing your passion is in the right manner. Now, if you're talking about the difference between leadership and passionate leadership to me is more intimate. So passionate leaders are typically the ones that are in, have their small circle, and that's where they can see the passionate leadership. But if you have a brigade commander doesn't actually show passionate leadership to the soldiers that are in the formation. They're probably just showing leadership, guidance. That passionate leadership is with your squad leaders, with your platoon sergeants, one that you spend the most time with, one that you can learn, and they can learn you. So that's how I would explain it by proximity when you talk about that. But yes, when you are being a passionate leader, you must shape it that it's received well and that getting the results that you want.
Thank you, Chief. Ma'am, would you like to add to that?
So yeah, I think that's a great question. And Drill Sergeant Handy, thank you so much for joining us, and especially bringing some of what our future leaders are in our Army, because having them ask these questions and kind of helping it define what they're thinking about and what they're going to expect, I think that it's just great. So, I mean, phenomenal. I just think it's amazing that you're here and you brought 4 of your soldiers here. So leadership, leader, you can lead, and you can lead, and it's the manner that you lead in. So for example, do you manage? Are you kind of the boss? Are you kind of directing? And it can be impersonal. It can be focused on processes, systems. It could be focused on maintaining the equipment, how many stacks you have, how many have went to the range. I think passionate leadership, and I would probably use a different word, because I think when you're engaged leadership and you're passionate about what you're doing, it comes across to your soldiers, your subordinates, your team. And in that, you're really focused, what I would say, you're focused on people. Now, I will tell you, my first 10 years in the Army, look, we all come into the Army and we know mission. You got to get the mission done. Your equipment's got to be maintained. We got to be ready to deploy. It's mission, mission, mission. My first 10 years, I was very focused on all of that, and really focused on a lot of the processes being the S3. And, I remember at the 10-year mark, I kind of heard this comment that said, hey, you're not approachable. And I was like, what? I'm probably the most laid back person in my mind. Most laid back person there is. What do you mean I'm not approachable? Well, the challenge with that is I was focused on mission, processes, equipment, making things run. And what I figured out at that 10-year mark, you focus on people. People equals readiness, and people will make sure the mission gets done. And so engaged leadership means you're focused on those things that will develop your soldiers, your subordinates. You're focused on the training. How do you need to train? How do you need to make sure they have the skill sets that are necessary to get the job done? How do you understand that if there's something they need help with to overcome, whether that's from a personal standpoint, a family standpoint, a financial standpoint, you understand your soldiers well enough that you are engaged to help them become a better person. You're there to help them become a better soldier, and you see the potential in them before they ever see it in themselves. And then more importantly, you help them get there, because that is what our legacy is. And that's what I think the Army does so great in this. And it's how do you help people reach their potential? And so what I have found, and this is often a dilemma, right? When you see leaders, we're in units and we have somebody that is like top notch, they're doing a great job. We got an NTC rotation, or we got something coming up, but we need to get them to school, right? We need to get them to develop and go to PME, because that's what they need. We need to prepare them for the next level, and we need to get them promoted, right? I will tell you, a lot of times the default is, hey, we're going to defer PME. we're gonna defer PME and you're gonna go to, on this mission set, right? I will tell you, an engaged leader and somebody who's focused on leader development and really preparing you for the next level to achieve your potential will make the harder choice for the organization. And they will make a hard choice for the organization so that it can better make our Army better and great. And also make that person prepared for the next level. So I think that's a big difference between engaged leadership or passionate leadership and just kind of being in here and check, I'm here to make sure all the stats are up. It's about how you focus your energy and develop your subordinates.
That was awesome, ma'am. Thank you so much. And if I could, let me just make sure everybody puts their phones on, their microphones on mute so we can continue to listen to the conversation and not hear any side conversations or living things going on. And I just wanted to add to both of the comments, engaged leadership and passionate leadership. I go back to what my mentors have stated a long time ago, and some of them, of course, here on the line. Soldiers don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. When a soldier knows how much you care about them, they believe that you have that passion for them to succeed, not just the unit. And since we've transitioned to people first, that's truly what the Army has always been about. But I think we are now realizing that it's about the people that make the mission successful. If the soldier doesn't care, isn't passionate about being successful for the mission and the overall unit, then how do we expect them to really care about putting that extra initiative and that extra oomph into what they do? And so they expect the same thing from our leaders. If they don't believe we care about them, then they won't add that extra, let me make sure they know how, show that pride in that organization if they don't feel that the people have pride in them. So truly appreciate those responses to that question. And hopefully that answered the question for Drill Sergeant Handy and the team that was there. Hopefully that answered the question. Was there a follow-up to that, or was that good enough? Was that a great, I think it was great, but how's that, Drill Sergeant?
Hi, ma'am. That was very, very phenomenal. I love those answers, and my soldiers do as well. And I love how engaging a leader can be to help his soldiers or her soldiers develop throughout their career. I have another question from Private Ellicott from Charlie 16th.
Okay, well, we're gonna, you know what? So we've got some hands in here, but we're gonna come back to you, Drill Sergeant. So don't put your hand down. Shalonda, make sure we keep a note that we're gonna let Ellicott ask the next question. But we've got I think we have another person in line.
Yes, ma'am. It's Rory. I think I'm saying that right.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, go ahead and ask your question.
All
Yes,
right.
we can hear you.
So over my many years, I believed that a good leader is enthusiastic and they have a positive attitude. I think it's a very big, effective way to enhance the morale of your unit. However, over my long now career, I've noticed that it becomes harder and harder to stay enthusiastic, to stay with that positive attitude, because life gets monotonous. What kind of like tricks, what kind of tips do you have, as many of you have much more experience than I do, like continuing to continue to stay passionate, to stay enthusiastic about not only your work but your soldiers?
Cool. Ma'am, I'll let you start out with that answer.
Yeah, so that's a great question, because it's too easy to become stagnant in what we're doing. What I would offer to you is that just a couple things. I mean, everything that you're doing has an opportunity, and opportunities present themselves. And one of the things that you always look at, especially as you're going through your career, and I look back on my 33 years right now, we're always having to change in the Army to remain relevant, to ensure that we have the right skill sets, to make sure that we understand how we have to prepare, and we also have to fight in the future. And it's through those periods of change, and especially as a leader, as a leader, you have to understand, and also, how do you drive that change? Because the thing that makes it monotonous, the thing that makes it stagnant, is because we all are very comfortable with the status quo. We all are very comfortable operating within, what we think our comfort zone is, right? I mean, let's give an example. Man, I start getting up to a certain number of push-ups, and I know that, it's going to get hard. But how do I break that barrier so that I push myself beyond it? And the thing about being a leader is, especially with your soldiers, is how do you understand how you need to drive that change? How do you get you and your peers and your soldiers to embrace that change so that you can drive it throughout the organization? How do they take ownership of it? How do you create that sense of urgency so that everybody has that same shared vision, understanding, and then more importantly, that passion, enthusiasm, and the drive to get there? One of the things you'll see in theater is we know what that urgency is. And when you deploy, you're focused very much on the mission set. You focused on getting the job done, and the urgency is automatically there. When you come back and we're kind of in garrison, or we're not deployed, and it's kind of like routine, the question is, how do you create that urgency? How do you create that understanding? How do you get everybody to really buy into that vision? And I will tell you, through my job, as I've come up, what I've seen is, where are those gaps and seams? And where is it that I need to focus my energy so that I can make the difference, whether it's for how the Army was training, how we were going to develop the, revolutionize training with the synthetic training environment as part of the cross-functional team, and change the way we're doing modernization. And then now, I mean, I'm in a job where we get to focus on people and the things that we need to change in terms of changing our culture, making it better for those that come behind us. And so to me, as a leader, I mean, that will come from you when you understand the opportunities, and you need to drive that change, and it's going to make a difference, not just for you, your soldiers, our Army, our nation. And I think that's how I approach it each and every day, because the status quo is too easy to embrace. And if, quite frankly, if we're just going to come in and keep the machine running, I'm not sure that's what true leadership is all about. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Absolutely, ma'am. I appreciate the comment, and hopefully that answered the question. I'll just add another part to it. We as leaders have to encourage taking a knee and going on leave, rejuvenating, reinvigorating ourselves, because sometimes it could get to the point of we just haven't had a break. We haven't had the opportunity to just go out and exhale and go and enjoy time with our family, and then remember why we put the uniform on. But I'll just say this, and I'll speak for some people that have told me this years ago and continue to tell me this. Whenever it's no longer fun, and whenever there's that time where you say it's not in you anymore, we ask you to make that hard decision. And don't do this just because it's a job, because if we don't have those leaders that have that passion, then what are we telling our soldiers? And just like our kids are going to take from our actions as parents, they're going to do what they see. And if we see the trainees see a soldier coming in or a leader coming in that doesn't have that excitement and passion about leading or about being in the military, then we're passing that behavior on. So we don't want to do that. So I just recommend taking that leave, taking those knees, taking the time away, and then coming back ready to just get back in it. But here again, if you're not there, and you find that it's no longer doing it for you, giving you that excitement and joy of being in the uniform, then maybe it's time to go on and get another career and become an advisor somewhere on a news channel and offer advice of your many years of service. So I just offer that, and hope that the passion comes back and continues to stay, because she's absolutely right. We don't want to be complacent. We don't want to be, you could also lose some of that zeal and excitement if you're seeing things that are happening around you and the leaders around you are taking away that joy by doing the wrong thing. So it all starts with where you decide you want to be in the military. All right, next question, Captain Estelle, who do we have up next?
Yes, ma'am. We have Captain Christina Costello.
Okay, Captain Christina Costello, your question, please. And if you've already asked a question, except for Drill Sergeant Handy, because I know we're coming back to you, please remove your hand, or you let your hand down. Okay, great. Captain Costello.
Hi, good evening, ma'am. Everyone, I'm really glad that we've had this session because it's always great when I get on. I always learn something new. My question for the panel is, we often hear about Gen Y, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Gen whatever, right? But I think it is important, and I always am curious about senior leaders like yourselves on your experiences of generational leadership, things that you came across, because when you all retire, I mean, that experience will go with you. Would you mind sharing that with the group and what you learned from interacting with different generations as you entered the Army at the time that you did?
I will start with Chief Nettles. Chief, would you like to answer that question first? And then we're going to jump to Lieutenant General Gervais.
It's not working. Oh, yes. Okay. So we just talked about this today in here about the different generations, because we're here. I'm here at Fort Huachuca, and we're giving warrant officer briefs of the new warrant officers that we want to come into to be warrant officers and come into the military as aviators. And they are totally different than when I came in. So when I came in, it was more execute, execute, execute. All right. When I became a warrant officer, it was more be technical proficient. And we were like kind of just on one path. But these soldiers now come with a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of technical expertise. However, they don't have the experience. So I think it's important that we learn from each other. All right. So I want to let them know that, what the military is about, my experience in the military, all the things and challenges that I've been through. I want to share that with them while they share their innovation with me, while they share, what they care about, what is the new stuff out there. So it's kind of like a pass of the torch. It's called intergenerational knowledge. All right. So as we phase ourselves out, we don't want to leave them without that experience, without the drive that we have, but we also don't want to transition in without showing them that they're pouring into us as well. So when I leave, I hope that I'm leaving them with my experience. And I hope that they know that I am also leaving with, their experience as well. So it's just an intergenerational connection that you have to have. And I don't think that us retiring, the Army loses anything, not at all. I think the Army is thriving. The way we're just rapidly changing things, we couldn't do that with my generation, I don't think. I think the new generation allows that more. So I just, our knowledge is great, our experience is great, but the Army is growing. And it's time for some of us to phase out and let y'all have the torch.
Oh, all right. General Gervais, ma'am, your thoughts?
Yeah, so coming from the dinosaur here, right? That's about to go out to pasture. I think what's important here is, every generation, we're really formed by the different events, the point in time, and what we've been exposed to, right? So when I came in the Army, I mean, look, we didn't have the internet. I know you guys now are going, what? Secondly, we wrote op orders on a pre-filled out form, and then we had a mimeograph machine that we produced it on. And the world changed, right? Technology, it just exploded. We had the internet. I mean, now we have phones, right? That are supercomputers that are in our hands. Landline, I talked on a landline phone, then I talk on like this. Generation C talks like this because it's all about FaceTime, right? So the generations they're molded by what has happened and what they've been exposed to. And I think what's important here is we can't assume, right? So what's important to me, Generation Z has no idea because all they've ever known is this, right? And so we have to acknowledge that. And I think what's important is, one, it doesn't matter what rank you are, you know, who you are, how long you've been in, right? And whether you're a civilian, it doesn't, one of the things that's my dad told me when I came in, and he gave me a lot of great advice, being a CW4, a lot of experience. He gave me a lot of advice coming in, and he told me two things when I was getting ready to go to my basic course. He said, hey, look, you want to know the secret to success of being an Army officer and also being a soldier? He said, look, it's pretty easy. 85% is looking and acting like a professional soldier. And then he said, the 15% is knowing when to keep your mouth shut. And he said, that's the part that everybody usually screws up. And here's what he meant by this. He said, look, you represent the people of the United States. You've been given an opportunity. It's not a right to serve. It's a privilege. Not everybody can. He goes, so please remember that the American people will love you just because you're wearing this uniform and you're a soldier. They won't care whether you're day one out of basic training or you have 33 years. They see this uniform, they see what you stand for. And he said, you need to understand that wasn't always the case, because remember I told you he was in Vietnam. He came back when our military wasn't appreciated. And he said, you have the trust and confidence of the American people. And he said, your job is to make sure that you understand the importance of this and you never lose it. Now the 15%, and this is where I'm getting to, he said, you need to listen more than you talk. And I know you guys are like, yeah, she talks a lot because we're listening to her right now. But I'm an introvert by nature. I listen. Listen to everybody. You will learn from everybody. But you won't learn if you're not listening. And you won't learn if you think you know it all. And he said, if you think you know it all and you stop listening and stop learning from others, he goes, that's the time to hang up the uniform. And he said, if you open your mouth, he goes, you open your mouth for the right reason and not about yourself. And he said, that's the piece that people will screw up. And so the thing about the question that got asked, which is a phenomenal question, our Army has went through this every step of the way. And every step of the way we say this generation, look, is not as hard as my dad's Army. We're soft, but it's getting softer, right? I mean, think about it. We hear all of this stuff. But here's the thing. We're just different. We've been exposed to different experiences. We learn a different way. And quite frankly, we still are struggling with some of the same problems and we still have the same intent. So I think the advice I would give is that, it's don't assume that everybody understands what you're talking about, because we all have a different experience. We also have a different point in time and reference. Secondly, I think it's important that we share the experiences, but we also look at how do you make sure that everybody understands the experience. I've been sitting in sessions where everybody's going like this, and then they don't have a clue, right? Because they haven't experienced what I mean. But when I ask them, and then at the same time, I'm sitting there going, that sounds great, but like, how do you turn this thing on, right? So we got to learn from each other. And I think it's experience and passing that knowledge that was talked about, that generational knowledge, and then appreciating each generation for what it brings to the table. Because, quite frankly, that strength is going to make our Army better as we go forward. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Ma'am, that was a great answer. And Chief, first and foremost, we all hear back in my day. So ma'am, I'm not too far behind you. I enlisted in 91. So I'm at the 30-year mark, enlisted, cadet, and officer. And so just knowing how much the military has changed, you're absolutely right. Each generation can learn from each generation. We all know Adults didn't learn how to get on the iPhone. We had our kids or somebody younger generation teaching us how to do it. So the key though is the mentorship piece of it, because I believe just like this program, we want to pass on that knowledge to the next generation. And I'm glad the question was asked, because the key is to ask the questions. We want the younger generations to ask us the questions that we're not even thinking about answering because we've got things that we're doing. But we want to have that dialogue. We just want to know if you all want to know what that information is. We have the younger generation that doesn't want to hear from the dinosaurs like us, ma'am, like us. But we want to share that knowledge to try to make it easier for you. We want to say we want to give you the answers to the tests to make it easy for you. The question is, are you willing to listen? And same with us. We have to be willing to listen as well. So thank you both so much for your answers. And as we are approaching our 19:30 hours, I want to take a moment and just thank you both again for your words of wisdom, the acronyms you gave me. I've got passion. I'm gonna have that written up on my wall, Chief, and ma'am, just the phenomenal words you had. And thank you so much for sharing your background. A lot of people don't understand right now about being the first in rooms or being the only in rooms. The bottom line is, and I've learned this, and it was said in a number of past sessions, we may have been the first, but we definitely don't want to be the last. And so thank you both so much for the wisdom that you've brought to the table, brought to this session. I see in the email or in the chat room, we've got some email information. People are sending their emails. Believe me, we will definitely add you to the roster. If we don't add you here, please send an email to us, Captain Shalonda Estelle, who was facilitating the question and answer period. She's on the flyer, the announcement. I'm on there. You know, you will send me an email. We'll get you right in there. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much again for joining us this evening. And we will be doing this next month as well. Now, next month, just like this month, we changed the schedule because of the Christmas season and the Thanksgiving season. So we will have the announcement out again for you. Again, on behalf of General Mark Simmerly, who could not be with us tonight, he thanks you all for joining in as well. And we all truly appreciate it. With that, I want to send you all out with blessings, a safe evening, and enjoy the rest of your month. And we will see you on the next session. With that, before I close out, I want to just thank some of the guests that we had this evening. We had on the line Lieutenant General Evans, who is our Army G9. He joined us this evening. We have Brigadier General Michael Layler, who was on the line. Thank you, sir, for joining us. We always have, and I'm honored to always have a Lieutenant General retired Kathleen Gainey, who is my mentor and continues to be a rock star in my life. And we have my sister-in-arms, who's not my twin sister, but happens to be, might as well be twin sister, CW5, Yolandria Dixon Carter joined us this evening. And of course, my awesome twin sister, who is she and Chief Dixon Carter are our liaison team at the Pentagon. So just so you all will know, some great things are happening. Lieutenant Colonel Clydelia Pritchard Allen and Chief Dixon Carter are making some wonderful things happen at the Pentagon for us, and we'll announce that in the future. But again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We truly appreciate this. And this is a recorded session, so all of our sessions do go on Facebook on our page. We will provide that information to you in a follow-on email. And just to be able to make sure you're able to join into the Female Mentor Morale Program Facebook page. And for those that are interested in starting your own chapters in your locations, please reach out to us. We will give you the FMMP starter kit so that you can get your team involved, and they can always join in on these sessions. So again, thank you. God bless you and have a wonderful evening. Take care. And I will always be the last person to sign off. So I will see you all as you sign off. If anyone has any questions while they're signing off, please jump on in and we will answer any questions you may have.